This is your home for St. Cloud State hockey, keeping you up to date on the NCHC.
One-timer coming, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
Women's WCHA.
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
The National Hockey League.
Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill, the thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner!
And everything from the state of hockey.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.
Welcome to the Huskies Warming House Podcast Den. Welcome into episode number 80 here on the Huskies Warming House podcast. It's our Healthy Scratch interview segment coming to you early Monday morning / Tuesday. Hopefully it's going to be out Monday night, I think is when this puppy is going to be out by the time you're hearing this. But nonetheless, it was a fantastic interview for all days of the week, but especially your primer for this weekend, St. Thomas and the start of men's hockey for the St. Cloud State hockey team. That was a mouthful of an intro, Nick. So who the heck did we have on and how did it go?
Better than that intro, actually. that was a jumbled mess. It's Brett Larson, and of course, always one of our favorite people to sit down and chat with. Again, everybody's 0-0, everybody's perfect right now, so everybody's in great moods, which also does help the cause here, Noah Grant. But what can you say? Always been gracious with this time with us, both here in the podcast as well as, times with other student media here at St. Cloud State. So, he's a guy that, made himself available. We all know what you get from Brett. He's, it gives you an honest answer and a good preview and some things that I think that, even for us, you kind of think, that COVID kind of is behind us a little bit, and it certainly isn't. And, to kind of hear his perspective on what's feeling normal, maybe what isn't still normal, was kind of intriguing as well. And certainly some roster spots that are still up for grabs, and how he's going to, I should say not he, but him and the coaching staff are going to be handling some of those roster spot battles is kind of interesting to hear as well.
I was just thinking how far that we've come or how we think how far we've come when we go back all the way to episode number 12, and he was the one who actually provided us with the Zoom link for our own show. So I feel like we're getting somewhere here. Always listen to his candid interviews and what he's got going on for the team especially. But I'm really excited for him to kind of, not that he was under any pressure by any means in Brett Larson, but going from that 3-year deal to that 7-year deal and kind of knowing he's going to be here for the long term and continue to build this program up and kind of step into the next wave, the next generation, the Brett Larson era, if you will, and bring this team hopefully to.
You wonder if he's got a no movement clause in years 5, 6, and 7.
Blow it up.
I'm just curious. I wonder if Cap Friendly has that. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's signing bonus. I wonder if you got a signing bonus or not. We'll have to look at the contract structure. But excited for what he's going to bring to the table, and just kind of make his mark on St. Cloud State history, and hopefully get the boys back to that final game of the season and get them over the hump, similar to what he did in Duluth, of course. But excited for sure for this weekend, and we won't keep you waiting on this interview. Brett Larson, episode number 80.
To the Den Husky Warming House podcast fans. It's episode number 80, and it is finally the week we've all been waiting for. College hockey just about 5 days away here. No, we're recording very early on this Monday, 7 a.m. But that's how these guys roll. Brett Larson, head coach, thanks for joining us, and I'm pretty sure practice is coming up. And again, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I always enjoy it.
Brett, let's start off by just asking the obvious question. Just how excited are we now that Friday's approaching? You're going to have some games here Saturday, Sunday, actually this weekend. You're going to be playing at home Saturday and then heading down to St. Paul to the Xcel Energy Center to finish off the series. Pretty good way to get yourself started, huh?
Yeah, can't wait. Obviously, players are the same way. This preseason's felt a little bit longer than most, I think, just because of the there's so much excitement. They know they're going to get to play in front of fans, and they can't wait. We had an open practice last night where we had a scrimmage here at the Herb and a couple hundred people in there. That felt great. So I can't wait till the feeling of that energy and the excitement in the building when there's 6,000 in there.
Brad, I know that obviously, you have your first matchup against St. Thomas, who's getting ready for their first ever Division I action. But is a part of you almost just excited for the normalcy or normalcy, however you say it, of a schedule, finally knowing that you're just back to those weekend series and you're going to, like you said, have fans in the building and just kind of be able to prep kind of how you do, where you have the early to middle part of the week to really just get ready for the weekend?
Yeah, obviously we're excited about that. I mean, I'm really proud of the team. We're fully vaccinated now, so I think that it puts us in a good spot moving forward with being able to just have as normal of a season as possible that way. And last year it's interesting though, because we've gone through some ups and downs in preseason, just like any team does. Eventually you get sick of going against your own guys. You want to go against somebody else, and you've got that, close to a month and a half of preseason. Things don't feel like last year in some ways to the guys. Last year, all they had was the rink in their apartment. That was it. There were no outside distractions. They couldn't go anywhere else. They couldn't see anybody else. It was just hockey all the time. And now, they've got a little bit of life again. They've actually got to go to class now instead of just doing it all online. And that brings a different feel, but a good feel, because it feels, like you said, like life's getting back to normal.
Brett, let's talk a little bit about, the life of a head coach, especially in preseason. We were discussing just before the show about, how the team has looked and, some of the new faces may be coming in and out. You seem to have a good problem in your hand by, almost saying that you might see some guys rotating in and out, and it might not be one, but maybe multiple guys on a nightly basis trying to figure out who might be the mainstays in your lineup.
Yeah, we've got some serious competition going on, and that's a good thing. Guys are pushing each other. They know in the room that they've got to bring their best every day. Every day is essentially a tryout and practice and evaluation for the coaches to try to get a feel of who's going to play. And I think that's a good thing. It's pushing everybody right from the net on out. I think David's being pushed real hard by Lamoureux and Castor right now. We've got 9 defensemen that can all play college hockey and are really good players, and we've got 16 forwards that can play. So we're going to have some really tough decisions to make here by the end of the week. But again, that's a good problem. It's a good group that way. But as a coach, it's also never. You're never satisfied as a coach, right? It's never quite where you want it yet. And we all remember how our team was how they were playing last year. I just watched the Mankato game on tape last week again, and to just see how hard and how, the guys were all on the same page and how we were playing. What people and the players forget sometimes is that just doesn't come back again in September. You have to start building again. You got to start that whole process all over again. But as a coach, you remember how you played there, and you want your guys to be playing like that right now. So we know we're not there yet. We got another week of important practice ahead of us to get ready for the weekend.
I've got back-to-back questions for you, Brett. My first question for you is, talking about last year, obviously putting that in the rearview mirror. Some of the newer guys obviously are getting their first taste of college hockey, but for the guys that are returning, what is your message now that process has started all over, for them on day one, getting ready for game week?
Well, you just said it kind of in your question. The process is starting all over again. Like, we can't expect just to show up and things are going to happen just as they did towards the end of last year, because we got everybody back. Those guys earned that. They earned it from how they practiced from the beginning of the year, how hard they worked to make sure the team was tight and close. A lot of the things they did on and off the ice that built throughout the season. We need to start that all over again, because no matter where you're ranked at the beginning of the year or what you did last year, you guys have been around college hockey long enough to know as well, everybody's good. I mean, the difference between first and eighth place in the NCHC is so minimal that, anybody can beat anybody. We can't take anything for granted. We have to get back to that belief that every day matters. Our preparation every day matters. The competition every day matters, to keep pushing ourselves to be successful in this league, because just because we have everybody back in a really strong league like this, that really doesn't mean a lot. You need to start that process, as you asked, right over from the beginning, from day one, and the effort that they put in every day to keep getting better.
One of the guys that was so pivotal last year down the middle, especially, definitely was Will Hammer, who's not with the team, of course, this year. Obviously, you brought in three freshmen that we knew about.
Sorry, guys.
Brett Larson getting
You guys-
his early morning.
You guys remember
workout.
this from last year?
I remember
Yeah.
the sensor. Yes.
That's that sensor on that light in the office here. Yeah.
For those listening on the audio version, Brett Larson has to make sure the lighting stays kosher in the. You're in the coach's room, aren't you?
I'm in the coach's room here in the locker room. Yeah, this is where I spend most of my time. So I've got an office, but I'm never there during the season. This is where I do all my video, meet with players, plan practice. I'm in this room quite a bit.
I say that basically is your office in the season, and rightfully so. Getting back to you brought 3 freshmen in that we knew about, of course, from the get-go at the tail end of last season, I should say. But 2 players you brought in, Ryan Ronsborough, a freshman, and then is it Aiden Spalaci or Spalaci? Spalaci. Okay, we were both wrong. Can you kind of walk us through some of those late additions and what you think those 2 guys, especially the last 2, bring to the table for you?
Yeah. So getting into the last 2, as you mentioned, it's interesting. You hear the media and the pundits, guys like yourself, saying, "Hey, they got 98% of their scoring back, and this, that, and the other thing back." And what a lot of people don't realize is arguably our most valuable line going down the stretch was Will Hammer's line with the momentum they brought. Chipped in some big goals, obviously, but they were a momentum line that we could play against other teams' top lines, which allowed us, when you have a 4th line that you can play against a 1, you're not afraid to play against another 1. Now you're getting Crandall's line matched up against the 3rd line all of a sudden, and you like that matchup. So that line was really critical for us. We're looking for some guys to fit Cockrell and Hammer's role. And we had Mason Salquist already committed, kid out of Fargo, captain there, a really good player. He's going to be a really good player for us. But the other 2, we kind of recruited looking for something specific, almost to the point where we don't care if they ever score a goal while they're here. But can they defend? Can they win faceoffs? Can they play against other teams' top line? Can they kill penalties? And most importantly, will they relish that role? Will they believe that that's what they want? Because sometimes you got guys in roles like that think they, want to be up on the top line or want to be on the power play instead. But we're looking for guys that's who they know who they are. They know that's what they want, and they know that's how they can contribute. And Aiden Spalaci's done it at every level. He's been that guy, and he hasn't been he wants to be that guy. He wants to have that role. Same with Roseboro, both a little bit different. Spelly's done it in the North American League and in college hockey. And Rosie's a late bloomer who's a big kid that's got to get a little stronger and keep growing. So he may be a little bit more of a long-term project that we're trying to develop, who's got a chance to really fill that role for us. Spelly's a guy that we're hoping can get in there and maybe do it right now. And not that Rosie can't. I mean, he's been coming along every day too. So those 2 guys were recruited for very, very specific reasons to try to plug some holes into that 4th line.
There's no question, Brett, that 4th line was so pivotal for you through the entire season, especially in critical faceoff situations. Say what you want about, the lack of, what do you call it, pizzazz or flair, but that line was so important for you to roll your 4 lines. Kind of on that same note here, Brett, as you go into the season, you got 98% of the rosters back, but it's still not the same. And at the end of it, it's still a new season. From a mentality perspective, what's been your message to the team to try to look at this as a fresh page and to not have any sort of mental carryover from last year? I imagine that's probably a little bit easier said than done.
Well, I'm hoping, and we've discussed this a lot, that some lessons we learned going through COVID last year will still apply this year. And the one thing that you had to learn last year was you had to stay in the moment. All you really had was that day. You had the preparation of that day, what you were doing that day, and who you're possibly playing on the weekend or the next game in the pod, because you never knew with one test going, somebody getting positive. You never knew. You might not be doing anything for 2 weeks. You might not be playing anybody. The other team might have it. You might not be playing them. At this point last year, we didn't even know if we're going to be playing hockey or not. You think of it. There were a couple different options. There was the pod starting in December, and a 24 game league schedule, or 20 whatever game schedule. Or if that didn't work, it was going to be starting January 1st with a 20 game league only schedule, and that was plan B, and plan C was no season. So you really had to focus on staying in the moment. We've talked a lot about that as a team this year. Especially with the preseason rankings coming out and thinking about last year and trying to put that to bed, move forward. Those lessons where we learned, where we were mentally strong to the point where we didn't look too far ahead or too far behind. That lesson from last year needs to really, really be important this year as we keep trying to build day by day. To be honest, our only goal right now is to be ready to play our best hockey on Saturday night against St. Thomas. That's it. Obviously, as coaches, we have some tough decisions to make in the lineup. But our only purpose and goal right now is to be ready for that game, knowing it's going to be a good one. With the new transfer rules, they've filled the roster with all Division I college hockey players. So they're going to be good right off the hop, and we need to be ready.
Well, you'll be happy to know, Brett, that my next question is about a preview for the long term of the season, of course, after you just talked about staying in the moment. But it kind of ties back in. We had Nick Perbix on a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about the start that the team had about 2 years ago where you kind of got, not blown out of your own building, but didn't really have the non-conference start in your own building that you wanted. And it really kind of shot yourself in the foot. This year, let's just say the exhibition schedule is going to be a tough one. Not that they're not every year, but you're definitely jumping right into play that's going to matter in the pairwise and that sort of thing. How important is staying in the moment going to be in those weekend series where you have your Minnesotas coming in, you have your old WCHA rivalries, and also how excited are you for them to finally come back to the Herbrooks National Hockey Center?
Well, I kind of joked about it in a couple interviews that in the off season, I was really excited about that schedule. And now I'm going, oh boy, we got to win some of those games, find a way to get some of those, because you're right. We're playing the best teams in the country right off the hop. I mean, we got, how it's going to be against St. Thomas. We all do. They've got a Division I team. They're going to come out hard, new program, new coach. It's going to be a major battle from the drop of the puck right away, which I think is going to be awesome because it's going to create a new, really fun rivalry for us. And for them too, obviously going back to a lot of history back in the old days, but I think that's going to be a great rivalry. It'll be right away. Then we play Mankato, who we just played in the Frozen Four, and that's going to be an absolute war when we go down there for two. Getting the Gophers back, obviously one of the biggest rivals we've ever had here. Then Wisconsin, an old rival, and Bemidji. I mean, it's going to be kind of let's be honest, it's going to be playoff hockey every weekend. You're playing some of the best teams in the country. And that 8-game stretch here early before we get a break at Halloween is really critical for us to find a way to win some of those games and keep getting better as a team. What I do like about it is that's going to really push us to be ready for our league play. We're going to have to play our best hockey going through those 8 to win some of those games and put us in a position to be ready for league. So that challenge will push this team to get better.
Brett, we had a chance to sit down with Spencer Meyer at NCHC Media Day. And, first of all, love the kid to death. I think he's actually one of the better captains that are out there in terms of the way he presents himself. And the question was asked, how do you, from the player's perspective, how do you keep that sort of target mentality out of your head? And what his answer was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. What we did is we prepared and the same way last year, and that's what made it successful. So why change it? Right. Is that sort of the echo that you're hearing from the players themselves in the locker room as they head into this season?
Yeah, I think it created a lot of belief in the room last year. It was the pod was interesting because I think there was a lot of growth for our team in the pod. It was all hockey all the time. Obviously, they had to do their schoolwork, but they weren't having to run off to class. It was all right in the hotel. We were right there. And I think what learning to just prepare game by game did was help keep their focus narrow. And that's one thing that you're always trying to do as a coach. You don't want them thinking, this is so cliche and we all know it, but you don't want them thinking about Minnesota before you play St. Thomas. You don't want them thinking about Wisconsin before you play somebody else. You don't want them thinking about getting into league play. You want them focused on right now. And I really think, again, those lessons that we learned last year built some faith in the team that they saw that work. They saw it be successful. And they know it's a recipe for success that they need to stick to. So I think we've got the team bought into that message of just weekly preparation and never, because what we've already talked about, even with the so-called target we've talked about is, you know what, guys, we're going to go into weekend and some weekends early here, we're going to win some weekends we're going to lose some. Either way, we're going to get back to the drawing table on Monday and we're going to prepare for the next weekend. We're going to learn from what we liked, what we didn't like, and we're going to keep trying to grow. So trying to keep that attitude of the only pressure really is for us to make sure we prepare all week to bring our best on the weekend. Then we'll deal with what comes at us, whether it's wins or losses, then we'll work hard at getting better the next week.
Speaking of that adjustment, kind of a unique piece that have you ever really seen it before? Your sophomore group is kind of in this weird spot where they've had that experience, they've had the taste of college hockey, they've had the taste of being in the room, but now they're sort of freshman 2.0s, and the fact that, like you said, now they're going back to class again. Has it been a unique challenge or a unique perspective seeing them kind of have to balance, knowing how the college hockey piece works, but now having to add the rest of their life aspects back into that?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it a little bit of an adjustment, actually, just in the stress levels on some guys early here at different days, and kind of their energy level and whatnot. We've kind of had to go back and remember what the real world is like, because to be honest, last year it was, in some ways, it was great. I mean, all they had was hockey. They obviously their classes online, but they could do that whenever they wanted. So the guys were at the rink all the time. They had nothing else to do. I mean, we had open hours. We called them in the weight room last year. Well, the whole team would be back every afternoon shooting pucks and, lifting weights, because they wanted to get out of their apartment. They had nowhere else to go. So yes, it has been a little bit of a challenge. It's not a negative thing. It's just been one of those things where you kind of got to get back to some an old schedule, some old habits, and kind of go through that again to relearn it.
And kind of building off of that, Coach, too, you talk about the 2.0 scenario. This group hasn't really seen or been in a full building, whether it's at home and on the road. Has there been any discussions about, kind of what to expect as far as, the crowd noise and how that can affect you, whether it's momentum both at home or away?
No, we haven't had many discussions on it, but we did our open practice last night in scrimmage for a reason. We wanted to just at least get that sense of having some people back in the building, play the music. We had the music loud. So, in between in timeouts and stuff, trying to communicate with that music in the background. And this might sound funny, but even putting the real jerseys and socks on for a real game, so it doesn't feel brand new to them next week when we play St. Thomas. So we really used last night as a dry run for a lot of those things. We had a pregame skate in the morning. We had team meetings. We had them here at normal time before a game, went through our normal our progression of our meetings and whatnot pregame. And we went through the whole thing last night to try to get a little bit of a feel for that before we step on the ice next week against St. Thomas.
Speaking of lineup changes, speaking of scrimmages, obviously, it is game week for you this week. Without giving too much away, as coaches so eloquently are able to do, what are some things that you're really liking about this group early that you've seen from practice and from scrimmage? And what are some things that you're thinking you still feel the need to work on?
Well, I'll start with the need to work on. We're just not, like I said earlier, you remember how your team was executing and working at the end of last year. We really need to focus on our pace and our quickness and our execution this week, because, like I said, you remember your team in April. Right now it's only going to be October, but we need to push the pace this week and get that up. We need to be a team that plays fast, plays on the attack, can execute quickly, make plays. And we need to really push that pace this week to get up to our tempo, because we're good when we play with speed, quickness, when we're on the attack, when we're on our toes. When we're playing slow, we're not as effective. So that's going to be one of our main goals this week is to continue to build that pace. What I do like is that competition. I mean, guys feel it. They feel it in the room. They can't take a day off. They know that they have to be really good every day, and there's still competition for power play spots, penalty kill spots, guys trying to move up the lineup or get in the lineup. And I've liked that, what that has produced in practice, which has been a high level of compete and guys pushing each other.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a quick follow-up. We did our own little preseason prediction to kind of predict the lineup and see where you guys were going to be sitting. Is there a particular defensive pairing, a potential like forward pairing or forward trio that right now you're saying they're not going to be touched for a little bit, or is everybody kind of, do you have I think we go back to the Nick Pervik, Seamus Donahue pairing especially. Are they going to stay together, or are guys going to cycle in based on how they're performing?
We're as any coaching staff, you're always trying to find ways to get better and look for things. We may try some things early. As a coach, it's hard. The hard thing about college hockey is there's no exhibition season, and game 1 matters as much as game 34 in the pairwise. So you're always kind of caught in this little tough deal of you want to try different things because you want to try to get better, but you also need to know that you need to bring your best and try to win those games. So we will try some I would call them slight adjustments to try a few different things with our deep pairs, with our lines. the one line I would imagine would be together early would be our Finn line and Okabe. That, that's a line that was pretty good for us last year. And those guys have some chemistry, and we're pushing those guys. Obviously, we've got question marks still on Brodsey. Brodsey played last night and looked pretty good in the scrimmage. And that's something you're dealing with the medical people on more than anything about what's the best thing for them. Is the best thing to play them and push them through it does that help them get better quicker? Or is it the continued rest on the weekends and the development throughout the week? So those are some discussions we're going to be having with our medical people this week on Brodsey, because that could certainly change some things as well. But it was nice to see him get in there and play last night. And it just seems like every day he's getting closer to being full go.
Brett, in years past, speaking of the exhibition season, it was kind of curious, a lot of changes these last couple of years, but even this year, there was that waiver where NCAA teams could end up, if they wanted to, actually do an exhibition game that wouldn't count towards their overall against another NCAA team. I think if I'm correct, either North Dakota played Bemidji or some others. In years past, you played a Canadian team. Any particular I suppose, a decision-making process of whether to have or not have an exhibition game besides an open practice? Was there ever a discussion about that?
Yeah, it was already decided for us because of our schedule. So we'd already, we had decided to schedule St. Thomas the opening week in October 2nd and 3rd. So that's the earliest you could play that exhibition game. So we had already booked that weekend with real games. So most teams are doing that because if they don't play the 2nd and 3rd, they play the following week. And they're trying to get an exhibition game in there. It was harder to get Canadian teams down because of COVID this year. That's why the NCAA granted that. So like I know Duluth is playing Wisconsin and Chippewa Falls. They're going to have a scrimmage. Bemidji and North Dakota are going to play each other in an exhibition game. Obviously, these don't count as pairwise games. They're exhibitions. But for us, we couldn't do it because we had already booked that weekend to play St. Thomas.
Brett, my question for you here, and I know also kind of interesting on the last question that Nick had. I think we heard that Tyler Anderson was up at the University of Manitoba, and they almost ended up coming down and playing the University of North Dakota, which would have been kind of a bit of a treat there. But on the coaching side, we talked about the normalcy of scheduling once again, as you know so well. The assistant coaching staff, especially, they're starting that scouting process all over again, and they're traveling during the week potentially too. How much of that is coming back to normal, and how much does your coaching staff, I don't want to say feel stretched thin, but feel that they're getting back kind of that workload of the traveling piece on top of that?
Oh yeah, we felt it this summer. Even the summer before, I played a lot of golf, and so did our staff. This summer we didn't play any. This summer it was back to all the USHL camps in June and July, some of the North American League camps, the USA Hockey camps out in Buffalo. It was full go in the summer, and I can give you an example of this last weekend for us. Even Nick Oliver and Dave Shayak were in Pittsburgh all weekend, and they were out there for the USHL Fall Classic. Back to that, where it's the weekend before was a North American League showcase. What's tough about college hockey is September is the most important month for getting your team ready, but it's also the busiest recruiting and scouting month of the year. So you're really juggling all month and spend a lot of time in the car back and forth to Blaine or out to Pittsburgh on a flight and back. But it's all part of it. I think more than anything, the guys are just thankful to be back at it. Back doing what we love to do and coaching, recruiting, being in the mix and getting after it. But it's certainly back to normal that way for sure.
Quick little recruiting road trip question for you too. If Nick Oliver and Dave Shayak are on the road together, how do you think that road trip goes if it's 9 or 10 hours? Do you think do they get along well? I mean, who's got the playlist tunes? I mean, what's going on there?
Knowing those two, they're talking about our recruiting list the entire time. It's and it's a good time to get a lot of work done that way. And I'm sure they hammer that out. Recruiting's a fun process, and there's a lot of opinions on players, whether you like the same, both like a kid, or one likes them, one doesn't, that type of thing. So I'm sure they had a lot of time to hash that out. And for me, it gave me a couple good days with the team here to practice and work on some things. We've also hired a new director of hockey ops, RJ Enga. It's been a huge hire for us. RJ was an assistant coach at Colorado College the last 7 years. RJ's brought a ton of experience to our staff already and been just a great addition. So we've been really excited about that. So it's been nice to have him around while Nick and Schick are on the road. I've got another guy here to help that, like I said, has been an assistant coach for a long time at this level and really brings a lot.
Brett, only a couple more questions at least for me. So thank you again for joining us this morning. As we, kind of get into this Monday routine, got some practices, but you have a game at the Xcel Energy Center also coming up on Saturday. I guess for the curious hockey fans that are out there, you got an Olympic sheet here at the Herb. You have an NHL size sheet. Also,
as he sprints
to turn on the light.
We know the interview is getting towards the end when it's gone off twice now.
That's right.
Checking the watch a little bit.
Right. But how do you prepare a team for the different ice sheets, essentially back to back like that? I know that we had a little bit of a discussion like that with the Colorado College a little bit, because they're transitioning from Broadmoor, which was an Olympic, to now Ed Robeson, which is more of an NHL sheet. I guess, how do you kind of incorporate it? Because, I mean, the 15 feet or so that are, that's a big difference in terms of room on the ice to make plays and to know that you have less time to be aware and to make something happen.
Yeah, well, normally, this will be odd. This is very rare that we ever do anything like this, because normally you've got the week to prepare where you play some small area games, you get the guys in a little bit of tighter space here in the Herb. Then you travel to wherever you might be going. Let's say it's Duluth. You bus up there on Thursday afternoon. You have a practice Thursday afternoon on the NHL size sheet to get it. You run a lot of breakouts, a lot of forechecks, things like that, where guys got to feel the space in those tight areas, neutral zone transitions. Then you get another skate on Friday morning. And by that point, it only takes a couple skates for you to feel, pretty comfortable on that sheet. This time, both teams will be going right from our sheet to their sheet to that size sheet with no practice in between. So neither of us have any time to prepare, which in my mind, at least, it's the same for both teams. We're both going to have to adjust on the fly. And I'm confident once you get through the first, probably 10 minutes of that game, it's interesting how it works. It feels normal pretty quickly. It doesn't take too long. So it's not a big issue, but this will be a time where it's very rare that we just jump from the Olympic size to the NHL size without a practice in between. So, but again, it'll be for both teams. So I don't think there's a real advantage there either way.
And then, you talk about road trips too, kind of, not just from the NHL sheet, but, just some of the schedule differences. You have a home and home, I believe, against Bemidji also in late December. How do you manage, just the player personnel in terms of make sure they got rest with the travel? And because that's not a short drive up there to northern Minnesota.
No, it's not. Obviously, rest is going to be critical. And the guys like it, though, because it's a nice way to do it where you get in that groove of playing and you're playing quick. And one thing that was kind of fun about the pod was it was almost a pro feel where you're playing almost every other day at times. So I can tell you the one thing about college hockey players, they like to play quickly. They don't like to have a ton of time to think. We'll get a good rest, get on the bus, get back, have a meeting, and the guys will be ready to go. I know both teams like those home and homes because it's less time just sitting around the hotel and waiting type thing. You just get back in the bus, get in your own bed, and you get ready to go the next day.
You talked about the coaching staff and, of course, the players itching to kind of play somebody else other than themselves, obviously. What does a game week look like for fans that might make it a little different from the weeks that you've had previously? Is there a different change where Thursday's practice is maybe a little bit lighter? I mean, what does that look as far as game weeks are concerned?
Yeah. So, well, boy, not to bore you with too many rules, but right now we're still in what's called the 4-hour rule. It's amazing. Our first day of official practice is October 2nd, which we play on. So we've got a 4-hour rule here where you can only practice 4 hours a week right now up until the 2nd. So we have to give the guys the day off today. And we kind of designed it this way in a way. So because of the Saturday, Sunday series next week, normally you got a Friday, Saturday series. So you practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You have a 4-day block and you have a typical routine that you go through. So what we wanted to do was have that inter squad game last night to make it a game feel kind of like it was a Saturday night. We did a 6:00 game, Saturday night game. We're trying to create today as almost a Sunday. So because of the 4-hour rule, we can give we're giving the guys the day off today. And then tomorrow will be our Monday essentially. So then we'll have we'll practice 4 days, an hour a day, that Tuesday through Friday, just like we normally would Monday through Thursday, hopefully getting them into a feel of a normal game week here this week. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you feel like it's kind of weird though, Brett, that, your official first day of practice isn't until the season starts? I mean, as a coach, do you kind of wish you had a little bit more, I suppose, availability earlier before the season starts?
Yeah, there's a major push right now, and this has gone for years and years. Coaches have been pushing it. I think it's closer than ever to bumping up that first start of practice a week earlier than it is right now, which would be great, because what it would give you would be, in most seasons, and again, it's only occasionally that you play real games the first weekend. I'll bet you, I haven't looked at the schedule, but it's probably only a quarter to maybe a third of college hockey that's going to play on the second and third. It happened for us because of St. Thomas coming in late. We wanted to find a way to get it done and get them on our schedule, and they wanted to get us on their schedule. So it was really the only weekend that worked. And the only good thing is there's no real advantage to either team because we're both under the same rules. There's a major push right now. We're really hoping it goes through, because ideally what you'd love to have is a full week of practice, an exhibition game on a weekend, another full week of practice, and then start your season. So we're hoping that rule will go through.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to essentially learn an altered schedule game day week, if you will, and then kind of rehash it the next week, for some of the guys. And I know for all of us as former players, sometimes you get guys that are very routine oriented, especially, and it makes a difference, feeling like what you're doing on a Thursday is what you're supposed to do on a Friday. My final question here, if I can remember what it was, I just forgot what it was. So
welcome to old guy problems. That's me. So
yeah, let me see. Oh, I remember what it was now. Thankfully, it could have been a dangerous situation there. Going into obviously St. Thomas's first ever Division I action. Rico Blasi, what he brings to the table. Some of the players on that roster. How do you prepare for a team that you really don't have a feel for what their actual style is? They're going to come out hard. They're going to come out heavy, but you don't know that maybe they like the neutral zone trap or something like that necessarily. Yep.
No, there's going to have to be adjustments made within game. What's nice about, again, now having RJ Angus, our director of hockey ops, he'll be up in the booth doing the video. You got a coach's eye up there from up above that's going to help us early in the game, trying to pick out what it looks like they're running in their forecheck, their neutral zone, that type of thing. We'll go back to some of the last games Rico coached against us. We obviously have all our games logged through all the years. I'm going to guess that maybe he's going to coach similar to how he did when he was at Miami, kind of a 2-1-2 forecheck, neutral zone, 2-1-2 neutral zone. We'll see if he changes those type of things up. But in saying that, what I kind of like about it, and it's just like in the regionals in a way, like it's not so much about the pre-scout. You do have to know a little bit about the opponent, but essentially it's how you play, so we're going to focus on us all week. We're going to focus on us executing at the highest pace that we can execute, our structure being good early, our work ethic, obviously, our special teams being ready. It's kind of a good thing sometimes to have the major focus on us, how we play, our ability to be ready, and us bringing our best, not getting so bogged down and thinking too much about what the other team's doing. So there's always that fine balance in coaching anyways. You don't want them overthinking to the point that all they're thinking about is how St. Thomas is going to play. We want to be focused on how we're going to play and come out and execute. So, we'll probably do a little bit of guessing based on how Rico's coached in the past. We'll have to make some potential adjustments after the first period based on what we see from up top. But other than that, I want to focus all week on us and being ready to play.
I've got a final quick question for you, Brett. Yeah, I do.
There'll be two more after this. Don't worry.
Well, if I didn't remember, I think it'd be ill-advised. But anyway, and we can cut this if it's not yet to be announced. I haven't really heard many rumblings, but you mentioned RJ. Is Nick Tomzik, has he or is he moving on? From what I had heard through the grapevine, is that something you're allowed to detail?
Yeah, I can say that, Nick. I'm really excited. He's already started his new job. He's the club hockey coach at Purdue Northwest down in Indiana. They're really, really excited about their club program and wanted to bring somebody in to build it. They're going to try to have a team at a few different levels. Nick will run the whole operation. It really fits who he is. Nick was a teacher. That was his trade. He's been in hockey. He loves it. This gives him an opportunity to go in and build something there. And it's the nice thing for them is it's only a few hours away from Michigan, where they're from. They've got 4 kids. Grandparents are closer. Put him in a really nice spot and gave him a really good opportunity. So we're really excited for Nick and his family.
Nick, don't be too surprised. I did think of one more, so it's quick, but go ahead.
No, go ahead. Because
right.
I was trying to.
One other guy that might fit that bill that you're going to see very soon. How excited / prepared are you for Trevor Zins this weekend?
Yeah, obviously he's a really good player. I'm happy for him. In all honesty, he's one of those kids that just continues to work and never gives up. And I'm glad he got the opportunity there. Great fit for him. I'm hoping he has a great season after this weekend. After that, I'm hoping he's got a great career. But no, I hope he does well. He's one of those guys that he's a real character guy, and I'm glad he ended up in a spot where I think he's going to be able to play, make an impact, and he's a great kid. So we certainly wish him nothing but the best.
Brett Larson, speaking of nothing but the best, we wish you and your team nothing but the best as we head into the college hockey season. And again, we thank you very much for joining us. Brett Larson, good luck this weekend. Let's have some fun. And college hockey's back. So I'm glad it's getting rolling here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. We're excited too. Can't wait to get going.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, Brett. As always, Nick, fun. I believe that's the 5th time that we've had Brett Larson on the show. So definitely the most welcomed guest on the show as far as we are concerned. How excited are you for not only this group, but their first weekend action against a new Division I opponent? And what do you expect?
Well, first of all, as Brett Larson had kind of alluded to, I'm excited to see where the team is at right now, right? Because as he made mention, you're starting all over again. And I think he put it so perfectly where in your head as a coach, you're hoping to you think your team is where April was, right? And it's just not the way that is. And I think, it's how do you rebuild that? How quickly? So where is that bar now? That's kind of what I am excited to see. And more so too, some of those positional things that he's talked about, versus Spelesi and then Ross or Roseboro, kind of see what roles or, how well they played that very pivotal 4th line spot. It kind of sounds like, from what Brett mentioned, that's essentially why they're brought in. That's something I think we even kind of predicted as well a couple of weeks ago when we had first caught wind of some of those late additions. But also, again, for St. Thomas, that with Enrico Blase, if they go 2 men up on the forecheck, they're going to provide pressure for you, one of your defensemen. How does this team get back into game shape early with fans in the building? I'm excited to see that. Plus, I can't wait to see how Jack Pierce looks on the back end. You're going to have some rotations in, as Brett said. Want to see Sahlquist, Josh Ludicky. Excited to see how this group performs. And it's the first step on a very long road, as you mentioned, to get back to that promised land there back in April. This time it would be in good old Boston, which would be a nice way to end the season there in a very hockey-rich town that it is out there in the Northeast Coast.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see, especially those forward groupings, but I'm moreover intrigued to see, that's our job as media guys, is to kind of predict or kind of assess what we think is going on. And as you get towards the end of the season, it's easy to kind of expect, what Brett Larson is expecting from the team. Kind of, if he makes a lineup change, what is he looking for? What does that mean early on in this season? And especially like he talked about a little bit, potentially more player movement than in years past up and down the lineup. It might be kind of interesting for us to kind of pinpoint why he's making the moves that he is, if we don't necessarily get a chance to sit down with him. So I think it'll be kind of a fun roller coaster where you're going to see a team that has that, great veteran experience. They've been through those ups and downs. They've been to a national championship game, but at the same time, you kind of have this mix of life, like he had mentioned, from having fans in the building, but also the youth infusion of, the freshmen and sophomores getting up to speed and hopefully helping those upperclassmen continue to win hockey games as well too. So.
And a small point too here, Easton Brodzinski, glad to know that he played last night. Obviously, we were not in attendance on that scrimmage. I'm kind of curious to see how much ice time he had. And, as he mentioned, is it best to play? Of course, Brett Larson not giving away any secrets on the inside. But, good to know that he is at least skating. Looks like, the one question I'd have for Brodzy is, has he been wearing a no contact jersey this entire time? Just how close is he, right? And, from kind of just, going in between the lines a little bit with Brett, it sounds like he's close. If you're having the discussion whether, he should play through it or if he's healthy enough to go, per se, or does it require rest? That would me tell me he's probably maybe 85, 90% there.
Yeah.
And I think the question is going to be, obviously with a broken bone, especially kind of a big one, right? I believe it was the femur that he broke.
Yeah.
How close is it to being full? Because that's definitely one thing you don't want to rush. If the bone's healthy, it's probably more muscle than anything, just trying to get him back into being as strong as he was before the injury. So we'll have to be probably wait and see as well with everybody else to see how close he is. And no matter what, if he's in or out, this lineup is deep, which is good, but definitely is a different looking squad with him out of the lineup, and that's for sure.
And in an odd way too, obviously, if you tell him that he's at about 90%, in terms of that bone healing things too, the other piece that you have to know is he ready? And I know obviously he wants to play, but mentally, is he thinking about the way he positions his body every time he goes into a corner? If you tell him his bone's only at 90% per se, or they say that you're probably not at 100%, or he'll recognize that maybe he doesn't feel fully back into form quite yet as well too. So that's the other piece that you have to manage, is having, and this is, Easton's a heck of a hockey player, but so are all the other guys. And if you have a guy who mentally and physically is at 90%, he might not be as much of an asset as a guy who, feels like they're firing on all cylinders, so to speak. Not that Easton isn't, but that's probably the best way that I can put that as well too, is injuries like that are big injuries, especially when it comes to, the legs, the core, things that matter a lot in terms of being a hockey player. You want to make sure that he's mentally and physically ready to go, which I think Easton, they'll manage him appropriately, and he'll have one heck of a super senior season once he jumps back into the lineup. Speaking of the lineup, Nick, if we don't have anything else, of course, we do have a regular show coming up on Sunday. We finally get to break down some men's hockey, women's hockey back in action this weekend as well. I believe it's Lindenwood on the docket, followed by Wisconsin the following weekend. So a non-conference versus a WCHA test in the next couple of weeks for their squad as well too. And then we've got Alex Micheletti coming on in the early portion of next week as well too, to break down the upcoming Mankato series, as well as talk some Minnesota Wild hockey for episode number 81's Healthy Scratch interview segment. So we got a lot of exciting things coming up on the docket. And Nick, I'm assuming we don't have anything else, so I'm just going to kick it right off. Everyone have a wonderful week if you're listening here on this Monday or Tuesday, and for sure be cheering on the Huskies this weekend, and we'll see you soon here in the Den.
One-timer coming, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies.
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it. He scores! Kirill the Thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.